we're gonna get some tea. And sorry the cap was on the other one. Well, that warms up. We're going to take this and this all the way over here. Yep. Now we're going to walk back. See if it's hot enough. Pretty good. We're going to rinse out a couple times. There's something gross in there. Now we are going to put the tea in. Walk it all the way over here. Probably should have put some sugar in that. I'm going to let it do its thing and get a little bit of sugar. Sugar. I just like a little bit of sugar in the tea because I'm not used to tea yet. Tea is not my huge favorite thing. Ooh, yes, check it out, the Xbox thing that I told you I bought. Now we don't have to worry about wasting batteries. Back in my room. Why did I come back in here? For my phone. Putting this carefully on the floor because it's a lady from Jade School who let us borrow it. Because I'm not great with tea. And that's not ready yet. You could tell when tea's not ready. So what the heck is that? Okay, well the tea is waiting. Let's try to read some Pride and Prejudice. Darn it. I told my grandma I would read some of this. Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen, includes glossary of literature terms, sample, student essay, step-by-step, something. Listen, if I can't read this properly, I'm sorry. I have a learning disability. Too much to be able to read this. Jane Austen was born in Savannah, England in 1775, where she lived for the first 25 years of her life. Okay, we don't need to know too much about that right now. Plot overview. Okay, let's see. There news that a wealthy young gentleman named Charles Bengaling, I don't know, has rented the manor of Neverfield Park because a great stir in the nearby village of Longbourn, especially in the Bennet household. The Bennets have 5 unmarried daughters, from oldest to youngest: Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Linda, and Mrs. Bennet is desperate to see them all married. After Mr. Bennet pays a social visit to Mr. Bingley, the Bennets attend a ball at which Mr. Bingley is present. He is taken with Jane and spends much of the evening dancing with her. His close friend Mr. Darcy is less pleased with the evening and highly refuses to dance with Elizabeth, which makes everyone view him as something and something I can't pronounce. Let's keep trying to read this. A social function over weeks. However, Mr. Darcy finds himself incredibly attracted to Elizabeth's charm and intelligence. Jane's friendship with Mr. Bingley also continues, and Jane pays a visit to Bingley Mansion. On her journey to the house, she is caught in a downpour and catches ill, forcing her to stay at Netherfield for several days. In order to tend to Jane, Elizabeth hikes through muddy fields and arrives with a spotted dress, much to the dismay of the snobby Mrs. Bingley. Charles Bingley's sister, Mrs. Bingley's spite only increases when she notices that Darcy, whom she is pursuing, pays quite a bit of attention to Elizabeth. Okay, if you're like me, you're probably like, this is kind of boring. Let's just keep trying to get this over with. Okay. When Elizabeth and Jane return home, they find Mr. Collins visiting their household. Mr. Collins is a young clay-man who stands to inherit Mr. Bennet's property, which has been entitled, meaning that it can only be passed down to male heirs. Mr. Collins is a pompous fool, though he is quite something by the Bennet girls. Shortly after his arrival, he makes a proposal in marriage to Elizabeth. She turns him down, wounding his pride, meaning the Bennet girls have become friendly with military officers stationed in a nearby town. Among them is Wickham, a handsome young soldier who is friendly towards Elizabeth and tells her how Darcy Cleary cheated him out of an inheritance. At the beginning of winter, the Bingleys and Darcy leave and return to London, much to Jane's dismay. A further shock arrives with the news that Mrs. Collins has become engaged to Charlotte, Elizabeth's best friend and the poor daughter of a local knight. Charlotte explains to Elizabeth that she is getting older and needs the much for financial reasons. Charlotte and Mr. Collins get married, and Elizabeth promises to visit them at their new home. As winter progresses, Jane visits the city to see friends. However, Mrs. Bingley visits her and behaves rudely, while Mr. Bingley fails to visit her at all. That spring, Elizabeth visits Charlotte, who now lives near the home of Mr. Collins. Lady Catherine, who is also Darcy's aunt. Darcy calls on Lady Catherine and encounters Elizabeth, whose present leads him to make a number of visits to the Collins homes where she is staying. I'm still not understanding this book, but it's whatever. At least I'm trying. Like, I really am. These chapters introduce Mr. Collins, the Turk of Jane, and Wickham, the novel's most villainous character. Collins, a parody of a serious, serves as a... I don't know what this is saying. Collins, unfiction, as another example of Austen something. He differs, however, from Mrs. Bingley and Lady Bracken? I don't know. Trying not to fall asleep. Anyone have anything they could tell me about this book that they liked? I don't get it, but I'm pretty sure it's my learning disabilities fault because what? Much to Elizabeth's dismay, Wickman does not attend the ball. Mr. Darcy tells Elizabeth and Linda that Darcy's presence keeps Wickman away from Northfield. Elizabeth's unhappiness increases during two clumsy dances with Mr. Collins and reaches its peak when she finds herself dancing with Darcy. There something is awkward, especially when she mentioned Wickman, a subject Darcy clearly wished to avoid. At the end of the dance, Elizabeth something, who warns her not to trust Wickman. Elizabeth assumed that Brangwen's sisters only begin spiteful, however, and choosing to ignore the warning. Jane then tells her sister that she has asked Brangwen for information about Wickman, but everything. Are you eating tea yet? It's getting there. Hurry up and beat tea. The story's starting to make me want to sleep. I don't get it at all. 0% of me gets it.